The stars were silent as the explorer ship drifted through the dark. Its crew was young, curious, and eager to prove themselves. They had traveled far beyond their home world searching for new discoveries. For many weeks nothing unusual had appeared on their scanners. Then, without warning, a faint signal broke the silence of deep space. At first it sounded like noise, a broken echo buried under static. The crew thought it was only the remains of some dead satellite or a failed transmission lost for centuries. But when the sound was cleaned and filtered, one word stood clear. A single word repeated again and again in a trembling human voice. The word was run. The crew stared at each other. It was not their language, yet their translators confirmed it was an old dialect once used by a species long rumored to have lived before most civilizations of the galaxy. The humans. Many among the crew had heard stories. Some believed humans were only a myth, an invention told to children to explain the ruins scattered across forgotten systems. Others thought they had been real but had vanished ages ago. Now, with that one broken word, the myth felt real. The explorers argued over what to do next. Some wanted to leave the signal alone. It felt like a warning, a cry across time that was never meant for them. Others insisted they could not ignore it. This was history speaking directly to them, and it might lead to answers no one else had ever found. Curiosity won, as it often did among young adventurers, and they changed course toward the origin of the echo. The journey carried them into the shadow of a dead star system. At first the system seemed ordinary, but the closer they drew the clearer the signs became. Planets scarred by massive craters. Moons cracked open like broken glass. Asteroids littered with fragments of ships that no longer had names. The system was silent, but it told a story of fire and destruction. Something terrible had happened here, long ago. As they passed into orbit of a broken world that once may have been full of life, the explorers saw more evidence. Old satellites still circled the ruins, their surfaces scorched and rusted. Strange metal objects drifted in silence, too advanced to be natural but too ruined to be understood. The crew realized they were moving through the graveyard of a lost civilization. Their ship's computer confirmed the ruins were older than any known empire. These remains had been here for tens of thousands of years. If the stories were true, this had once been the home of humanity. The explorers felt a chill run through their minds. Whoever the humans had been, they had lived with power. To scatter such machines across an entire system, they must have been mighty. And yet they were gone. The signal grew stronger the deeper they moved. It no longer came only as static. They began to hear other broken words hidden under the surface, voices shouting, crying, whispering. The messages were incomplete, damaged by time. But always the same word rose above the noise. Run. The crew grew uneasy. Each fragment they uncovered made the air inside the ship feel heavier. One of them suggested they should leave at once. If a civilization as great as the humans had fallen, then whatever destroyed them might still be near. Another argued that time had erased any danger. If the humans had fallen 40,000 years ago, no enemy could possibly wait that long. But even as he said it, he felt doubt in his own heart. When they reached the remains of the largest planet, they discovered something that made them fall silent. Floating in the shadow of the dead world was a ship. It was massive, far larger than their own, and unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface was blackened by fire and age, but its shape was still sharp and proud. The scanners read no life signs, no energy, nothing at all. It was a corpse of metal and memory. And yet, as the explorers drew close, lights flickered along its hull. The ancient warship, asleep for thousands of years, began to awaken. Faint pulses of energy rippled across its surface, like a heartbeat returning after death. The crew froze. Their instruments crackled with activity. Something inside the ship was alive again, or had never truly died. One voice whispered inside the control deck, a voice full of fear. Perhaps this was what the message had meant. Perhaps this was the reason humanity had spoken their last word to the stars. Not to invite others, but to keep them away. The warning was clear now. This place was not safe. But it was too late. They had come too close. The explorers could only watch as the warship's shadow fell across their vessel, and the old signal echoed once more through their speakers. The broken human voice rose through static, shaking with desperation, whispering the same word again. Run. The stars outside remained silent. The ruined system seemed to hold its breath. And the explorers realized they had awoken something that should have been left to sleep. The alien explorers drifted in silence as the ancient warship loomed before them. Its size dwarfed their vessel, a sleeping giant resting in the shadow of a broken world. For a long time, no one spoke. The crew only listened to the faint hum of their engines and the static whisper still echoing through their comms. The single word carried by that old human voice had not changed. Run. But curiosity, the same force that had brought them across the stars, pulled stronger than fear. They powered up their scanners and reached out toward the warship. The results stunned them. The ship was not fully dead. Deep within its core, fragments of energy still flickered. Systems that should have shut down tens of thousands of years ago were somehow active. No civilization they knew could create machines that endured for so long. Humanity had built something beyond comprehension. They decided to move closer. Their small ship slipped through the graveyard of debris, weaving between broken satellites and burned fragments of ancient machines. Each piece of wreckage told the same story: war and fire. A planet had once thrived here, perhaps even the cradle of the human race, but now only ash remained. When they reached the side of the warship, they saw marks along its hull. Long scars, deep and violent, ran across its body. These were not the wounds of time but the cuts of battle. The explorers exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever enemy had fought here had not simply wanted to win. They had wanted to erase. The captain gave the order, and the explorers launched a small shuttle. As it crossed the empty void, the crew inside felt the weight of history pressing down. They docked with a torn section of the warship and stepped inside. Darkness swallowed them. The air was thin, the corridors cold and silent. Their lights cut through dust that had not moved in 40,000 years. Everywhere they looked, they found remnants of a people they had never known. Rusted weapons lay scattered on the floor. Suits of armor stood against walls, cracked and empty, their shapes strange yet hauntingly familiar. The crew whispered to one another. This was not only a ship. It was a tomb. In the command chamber they discovered something more. Screens covered in frost and decay flickered to life as their presence triggered forgotten systems. Grainy images appeared, blurry but real. Faces looked back at them. Human faces. The explorers froze as the recordings played. They watched men and women shouting, fighting, bleeding. The voices were broken, the translations imperfect, but the message was clear. The humans had been in the middle of a war unlike any the explorers could imagine. A war for survival. One fragment showed a human commander. His face was pale, eyes burning with desperation. His voice was heavy with the weight of doom. He shouted at the camera, and though the words cut in and out, one sentence repeated clear enough for even the aliens to understand. If you hear this, run. The explorers felt their hearts pound. The warning was not just a myth. It was real. These people had died leaving behind a message for anyone who came after. A message carried across the gulf of time. Suddenly one of the explorers pointed at a nearby screen. The system was trying to play another file. The image cracked, the sound hissed, but this time the recording showed something different. It was not a human. It was the enemy. The shape on the screen was dark, like a shadow wrapped in steel. Its body did not move like flesh but like a machine built to hunt. Its eyes glowed with a cold light that pierced through the grainy static. Even though the image was damaged, the explorers felt a chill. The humans had called them hunters. The recording ended abruptly, as if cut by violence. The chamber fell silent once more. The explorers stood together, their minds shaken. For the first time, they felt what the humans had felt. Fear not of death, but of something that could erase entire civilizations. They understood why the message had been sent. Back on their ship, alarms suddenly screamed. The scanners detected movement at the edge of the system. Something was coming, slow but certain. The hunters. The crew stared at the monitors, their blood running cold. The warning they had uncovered was no longer just history. It was happening now. They were no longer explorers. They were prey. The warship's whisper echoed once again through their comms. The broken human voice repeated the word as if begging them across 40,000 years. Run. The ship trembled under the weight of silence as the alien crew gathered on the command deck. Outside, the stars seemed unchanged, but their scanners told a different story. At the far edge of the system, shadows moved. Shapes darker than the void crept closer, massive and countless. The hunters had arrived. Fear spread through the explorers. They had come searching for knowledge, but instead they had awoken a nightmare. The warship's recordings still echoed in their minds. Humanity had fought these machines and failed. Now the same enemy had noticed them. The captain ordered the ship to pull away from the human wreck, but before they could escape, the warship systems came alive. Lights blazed across its hull, engines flickered, and ancient weapons pointed into the dark. The alien crew gasped. The ship was still trying to fight, still carrying out commands left thousands of years ago. It was as if the humans had built it to never surrender. Inside their own vessel, the explorers searched through the fragments of data they had collected. The files were incomplete, many corrupted by time, but together they painted a desperate picture. Humanity had fought for centuries, perhaps longer, against the hunters. Every log spoke of battles lost, colonies burned, and fleets shattered. Yet none spoke of surrender. One recording showed a human scientist, tired and trembling, speaking directly into the camera. "If you are watching this, then we are gone," the translator whispered in broken tones. "They are endless. They are patient. They do not stop. We tried to hide. We tried to fight. We gave everything. But still they come. If you find this message, leave. Save yourselves. Run." The crew listened in silence. The words were not only a warning. They were a plea. These people had known their fate, yet still they had left behind a message for others. The explorers felt a strange mixture of fear and respect. Humanity had died, but in their final moments they had thought of those who might come after. Another log appeared, half broken and filled with static. This one showed soldiers inside a burning ship. Flames licked the walls while alarms wailed in the background. A soldier, face streaked with blood, looked straight into the lens. "We will hold them here," he shouted. "Even if no one remembers us, even if no one survives, we will not go quietly. They must be stopped, even for a moment. Run, but do not forget us." The explorers felt the weight of the words press down on them. The humans had not simply died. They had chosen to fight until their last breath. The warning was not only for survival. It was also a reminder of courage. Suddenly, alarms wailed again. The hunters had crossed into the system. The scanners showed their vast fleet spreading like shadows across the void. They did not burn with engines like normal ships. They glided silently, as if space itself carried them. Their bodies shifted and twisted, part machine, part nightmare. The alien crew panicked. They argued over what to do. Should they flee at once, or try to hide among the ruins? The captain made the decision for them. "We will leave," he said firmly. "If we stay, we die." Humanity tried to stand and was destroyed. Our only chance is to carry their warning. Their engines roared to life. The small ship turned away from the warship and began to race toward the edge of the system. Behind them, the ancient human vessel awakened fully. Its massive cannons glowed, and with a thunder that shook the stars, it fired. Beams of light cut across the void, slamming into the advancing hunters. For a brief moment the darkness cracked with fire. The explorers watched in awe. Even after 40,000 years, the human ship still fought. It was not enough to win, but it bought them time. They understood now. The humans had left these guardians behind not to survive, but to delay, to give others a chance. As their ship raced away, another fragment of human audio played across their comms. It was faint, torn apart by static, but the voice was calm, almost gentle. "To whoever hears this, we are sorry. We could not stop them. But maybe you will find a way. Until then, run." The explorers' eyes filled with fear and determination. They could not fight the hunters. Not yet. But they could live. And they could carry the story of humanity across the stars. Outside their windows, the hunters grew larger, chasing like shadows that never tired. Inside, the human echoes repeated, sharp and desperate, reaching across time itself. Run! 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 The alien explorers pushed their engines to full power, racing away from the human warship and the graveyard of ruins. Behind them, the colossal vessel stirred like a giant rising from its tomb. Its cannons glowed with fire that had slept for 40,000 years, and then the void split with thunder. Beams of light carved through the darkness, striking the hunters at the system's edge. The explosions lit the black shapes for the first time. They were not ships in the way the explorers understood. They moved without sound, their forms twisting like living shadows wrapped in steel. When the blast struck, pieces of them tore away, but instead of falling, the fragments crawled back and rejoined. The hunters healed as if the void itself kept them alive. The explorers watched in silence, terror rising in their throats. Humanity had fought these things with fleets and fire, yet still they had fallen. Now the hunters turned their glowing eyes toward fresh prey. The captain shouted orders. The ship dove into the ruins of a shattered planet, weaving through broken rock and drifting debris. Chunks of stone larger than cities tumbled slowly, relics of a world destroyed long ago. The crew hoped the wreckage would hide them from the hunter's gaze. For a moment, only silence followed. The scanners showed no movement. Hope flickered inside the explorers' hearts. Maybe the hunters had stayed to battle the ancient warship. Maybe they would escape. Then the shadows entered the field. Dozens of dark shapes slid between the asteroids, their cold lights sweeping across the rocks. They did not move like hunters searching for prey. They moved like predators that already knew where their victims were hiding. The explorers gripped their controls with shaking hands. The small ship darted through narrow cracks, engines straining against gravity and stone. The hunters gave chase without hurry, gliding through gaps too small for their size, bending as if their bodies had no limits. No matter how fast the explorers moved, the shadows remained close. In the distance, flashes lit the sky. The human warship fought with everything it had left. Its cannons roared, tearing through the hunters again and again. For every enemy destroyed, 2 more appeared. The old vessel burned like a sun in its final hours, refusing to die quietly. The explorers realized the truth. The humans had built it not to win but to delay. Even in death, they fought to buy others a chance to live. Alarms screamed inside the explorers' ship. A hunter had locked onto them. A beam of pure darkness shot across space, grazing their hull. The metal groaned, sparks flew, and one crew member was thrown from his seat. The captain steadied the ship, forcing it deeper into the debris field. Panic spread. They could not fight. They could only run. But as fear closed in, something else stirred inside them. Resolve. Humanity had faced the same enemy, and though they had fallen, they had fought until the last moment. The explorers felt that courage echo through them. If they were to die, they would not make it easy. They rerouted power to their weapons. Small cannons flared, spitting fire into the darkness. The blast struck a hunter, slowing it for a heartbeat. That was enough. The ship slipped through a narrow gap, engines roaring, racing toward the edge of the system. Behind them, the human warship unleashed one final strike. Its core ignited in a blaze of light, brighter than a star. The explosion tore across the void, swallowing hunters and ruins alike. The shockwave slammed into the explorer's ship, sending it spinning out of control. Systems flickered, alarms blared, but when the light faded, they were still alive. The ruins of the warship drifted in silence. Humanity's last guardian had given its final breath. The hunters were still there. Many had survived the blast, and they were coming again, relentless as always. But the sacrifice had bought the explorers distance. Their ship limped forward, broken but alive, engines burning with every drop of power left. The crew looked back one last time at the dying system. Humanity had fallen here, but not in vain. Their warning had been heard. Their courage had been seen. And now, across the gulf of stars, their message would live on. The comms crackled. The same ancient voice whispered once more through static, carrying the weight of 40,000 years. Run. And the explorers obeyed. The explorers' ship staggered forward, scarred and battered, its engines burning with every ounce of strength left. Behind them, the ruined system grew smaller, but its memory pressed heavy on their minds. The hunters had not stopped. They were still following, their shapes crawling through the void, patient and tireless. Inside the ship, the crew replayed the fragments of human logs they had recovered. Each piece of broken footage became clearer now, as if the past itself wanted them to understand. They watched the humans in their final days, faces worn, voices strained, yet eyes bright with fire. Humanity had known they would fall, yet they had not chosen silence. They had chosen defiance. One recording filled the command deck. It showed the ruins of a city under fire. Towers crumbled as flames consumed the sky. In the middle of the chaos stood soldiers in heavy armor, holding their ground. Explosions shook the ground, but still they fought, shouting to one another, pushing civilians into transports. A voice broke through the static. "We will hold until the last transport leaves. Tell them humanity fought." The explorers felt their hearts twist. These people had not begged for help. They had not cried for mercy. They had stood against the impossible so that someone else, anyone else, might have a chance to live. Another log appeared, this time from a fleet command ship. Thousands of human vessels filled the screen, their silhouettes stretching across the stars. A commander stood tall before his crew. His voice was calm, yet his words carried the weight of finality. "The hunters do not fear death. But they will remember us. If we fall buying time. If we die free." The fleet moved into formation, a wall of light ready to crash against the endless dark. The explorers stared at the image. The humans had faced extinction, yet still they had launched themselves into the fire. Not to win, but to stand. Not to survive, but to show the universe what it meant to be unbroken. The recordings continued, each one more haunting than the last. A scientist whispering into a recorder while walls shook around him. A mother holding a child, promising the darkness would never erase their story. A group of engineers turning their station into a bomb, smiling as they triggered the charge. Every face, every word carried the same message. Humanity refused to vanish quietly. The captain of the explorer's ship clenched his hands. For the first time since entering the dead system, he felt more than fear. He felt duty. The humans had fought not for themselves but for the future. That future now rested with those who had heard their warning. Suddenly the ship shuddered. A hunter had drawn close, its shadow stretching across the hull. The crew panicked, but the captain steadied his voice. "If they could face this, so can we." He ordered weapons to fire. Their cannons flared, striking the hunter with desperate bursts. It staggered but did not fall. The crew knew they could not destroy it, but they could delay it, just as humanity had done. The fight raged as the ship crawled toward the edge of the system. The hunters pressed harder, their cold lights cutting through the dark. Yet every second the explorers survived felt like a victory stolen from the jaws of extinction. In the middle of the chaos, one last human log played automatically. The screen showed a lone soldier, standing in a burning command center, smoke curling around him. His face was blooded, but his eyes burned bright. "To whoever finds this," he said, "remember us. We were here. We stood. We did not bow. If you live, then carry our story. Carry our warning. Run." The image vanished, leaving only static. Silence fell over the crew, broken only by the sound of their ship's engines groaning against the void. They understood now. Humanity's last stand had not been a failure. It had been a message, a beacon across time. The humans had died, but their courage lived. As the explorers pushed into the darkness of deep space, chased by the endless shadows, they carried that message with them. The hunters were unstoppable, but so was the echo of humanity. Run. The explorers' ship drifted into the deep void, far from the broken system where humanity had made its final stand. The hunters still lingered behind, distant but unyielding, their shadows moving like storm clouds across the stars. The crew kept silent, each one listening to the hum of the engines, each one replaying the words they had heard again and again. Run. They had come as curious travelers, eager to uncover myths, but they were leaving as survivors carrying a burden heavier than any treasure. Humanity's warning was no longer just a whisper in the dark. It had become a fire in their hearts. They could not fight the hunters, not yet. But they could live. And they could tell the galaxy what had been lost. The captain ordered the signal amplified. Their systems spread the human message outward, carrying it across channels, repeating it on every frequency they could reach. The word run echoed into the void, sharper now, burning with urgency. Civilizations far away would hear it. Some would laugh at it. Some would ignore it. But others would listen, and they would prepare. Inside the ship, the crew gathered in the command chamber. They spoke little, their faces drawn with exhaustion. Yet beneath the fear, something stronger had taken root. Respect. Admiration. A sense that they had witnessed something far greater than themselves. Humanity had fallen, but in their fall, they had lit a torch that no darkness could fully smother. One crew member stared out the window, eyes fixed on the endless stars. His voice broke the silence. Maybe they are not gone. The others turned toward him. He explained softly, almost like a whisper. If they could build ships that still fight after 40,000 years, if they could leave messages that survive until now, then maybe some of them found a way. Maybe somewhere, hidden in the stars, they still fight. The thought hung in the air. No one argued. No one dismissed it. In their hearts, each of them wanted to believe. Because if even a single human had endured, then there was hope for everyone. The hunters would not stop. That much was clear. They would move from system to system, patient as death itself, consuming all they touched. But now the galaxy would not be blind. Humanity's echo was no longer trapped in a ruined system. It had been carried forward, alive in the voices of those who had heard it. As the explorer's ship slipped further into the unknown, the comms crackled again. The same broken human voice whispered through static, weaker now but still clear. If you hear this, you are not alone. The crew froze, hearts pounding. Was it just another fragment, one they had missed before? Or was it something more, an echo hidden deeper in the ruins, or perhaps a signal sent from somewhere else, somewhere still alive? No one could be sure. But as the words faded into silence, the explorers felt a spark ignite within them. The message of humanity was no longer only about fear. It was about survival. It was about defiance. And it was about hope. They looked out into the endless ocean of stars. Somewhere out there, the hunters prowled, unstoppable. But somewhere else, perhaps hidden, perhaps waiting, humanity's fire might still burn. The captain set a new course, steady and determined. We run, he said. We live. And we carry their story. The stars stretched ahead, cold and eternal. The shadows behind never tired. But between them, carried by a small ship and a handful of survivors, humanity's voice still moved through the galaxy. A whisper across 40,000 years. A warning. A promise. Run.